Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahabushai, Bahasham, Barakahakudash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahabushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 5. Yeah, also, because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And what does that sound like? That NW0, that GREATRESET, the fourth industrial revolution, that the elites of the biblical Edomites are these so-called white people, such as the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, DuPonts, Cargiles, Aldriches, Merovingians, you name it, want to institute. But on another level, it can talk about this American way of life that these Edomites in America spread when they go to these different countries. They say they're bringing democracy and women's rights and capitalism and freedom of speech and all that, when that's really just the cover for these American Edomites to use their military to go into these different countries, overthrow sovereign leaders that don't want to play ball with them, and set up puppet governments so that they can steal that country of its resources and grape their people. As it says, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. The U.S. military having embassies and military bases all across the planet, who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death and cannot be satisfied. Overthrowing countries in Central and South America, in the Middle East, Africa, the list goes on, so they can steal that nation's resources. And I opened up the video with this verse to preface a video from Redacted's YouTube channel titled U.S. Secret Wars Exposed as Oil Tankers Attacked Overnight in Syria, Redacted with Clayton Morse, just to go to show how much that Habakkuk chapter 2 fits these Edomites out here. As we'll see in this video, documents have been released that show that America has been waging wars in up to 17 countries to do what? Take that country's resources and set up puppet governments that allow them to do so. The United States of America, which is biblically known as Babylon the Great, is truly the hammer of the earth, as it says in Jeremiah 50 verse 23. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder? What is America known as? The world's policemen, going into these different countries to, again, under the cover of bringing democracy and women's rights and freedom of speech, really overthrows those countries so they can enlarge their desire as hell. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How has Babylon become a desolation among the nations? For all this wickedness that the United States of America has been committing, hey, it will be broken and cut asunder when these different nations of the earth, led by Russia, shoot 200 million nuclear missiles onto this place, turning it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. But now let's get into this clip. And this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this video, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes. And I'm going to play the first 10 minutes or so of this video.
Let's start with a bombshell new report just released showing what we probably already knew, but we didn't have it in black and white, which is the United States is secretly waging wars around the world using post 9/11 loophole laws that are specifically designed to allow them to just willy-nilly deploy troops wherever the hell they want to and wage secret wars. I think Maybe if there's one mission this show has.
He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell and as death, and cannot be satisfied, all under the cover of getting these people drunk off of that wine he spreads. And that's not talking about literal wine. It's talking about philosophies, again, bringing so-called democracy, feminism or women's rights, freedom of speech, all that bullshit. And just look at all these countries that the U.S. has waged war in to bring freedom to. They're much worse off than what they were before. Broken families, whores, U.S. corporations sucking up all the resources, destitute neighborhoods, destroyed environments. The list goes on and on. A real good book to read, which just goes to show all the detrimental dealings of the U.S., is Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
As it's to expose this story, to expose these deep staters, these imperialists for what they are, and expose these types of stories. And so when I saw this report, we'll get to the report in a second, it really just speaks to the desperation of the American hegemony right now. Now, you might have seen this meme floating around, and it's funny because it's true. Just look at this. American geologists looking for oil. And that, I think, sums it up. So almost all of these stories involve some sort of a natural resource, oil at the heart of it, but natural resources in general. And this is what we now use our military for. Instead of
who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death and cannot be satisfied. This is Micah chapter 2, verse 2. And they covet fields, in a lot of cases, oil fields, such as in Syria. We have to protect the Syrian oil from the Syrian people and take them by violence, bringing in that Leviathan force, the U.S. military, to overthrow that government and military so they can set up their puppets and set up shops. And then U.S. corporations can come in and suck the lands dry and houses and take them away. Set up military bases and embassies and tell these people that the ways you've been living by before aren't the right way. That's archaic how you're living. You need to live by some of that democracy, some of that feminism, some of that freedom of speech. Go vote for puppets we set up so they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage.
Of, instead of defeating the Third Reich, right now we use it to infiltrate and
when you look up the history, who helped to fund the Third Reich or Nazi Germany? Look, George W. Bush and George W. Bush's great-grandfather, Prescott Bush, as well as the Rockefellers, had a hand in it.
Overtake other countries in order to exploit their resources. And we
let's bring that back a little bit.
We're doing it under the guise of democracy.
Ooh.
Right now, but natural resources sums it up. So almost all of these stories, and it's funny because it's true. Just look at this. American geologists looking for oil. And that, I think, sums it up. So almost all of these stories involve some sort of a natural resource, oil at the heart of it, but natural resources in general. And this is what we now use our military for. Instead of defeating the Third Reich, right now we use it to infiltrate and overtake other countries in order to exploit their resources. And we pretend that we're doing it under the guise of democracy when in fact we are arming and supporting terrorists, like in Syria.
One more time. Yeah. Also, because he transgresseth by wine, under the cover of democracy, freedom of speech, women's rights, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, going to these different countries, who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death, and cannot be satisfied. To what? And they covet fields and take them by violence, steal people's natural resources, set up puppet governments that allow them to do so, and houses, and take them away, so they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage.
Yeah, we are actively arming Al-Qaeda, and we know it, and you know it, and it's been...
And not just that, as this guy's about to go into, all these different so-called terrorists that and other revolutionary groups, or whatever you want to call them, that the U.S. is supposedly fighting against. In a lot of cases, they were funded and set up by the U.S. To justify them going into those countries, and to also be used as mercenary proxy forces in those countries to do the dirty work for the U.S.
Been reported in major publications.
So their presence isn't directly known.
And the people of Syria know it. That's just one example. The New York University School of Law's Brennan Center for Justice details how all of this comes together in a new, and what they say is about the Department of Defense has been allowed to covertly deploy troops and wage secret wars over the past 2 decades in dozens of countries across the globe. It really is a damning report that should be the top story, I think, on every major nightly news network, but it won't be. And every major newscast, maybe even around the world, but it won't be. Flip on the BBC, you're not going to see it. Flip on NBC Nightly News, you're not going to see it. But don't worry, because the United States media, of course, are controlled by the deep state intelligence cabal. So they don't want you to know this. They don't want this story out there. And that's why we need to shine a light on it. So here's the report. It's called Secret War, How the U.S. Uses Partnerships and Proxy Forces Under the Radar. And it's an amazing read. I encourage all of you to read it separately, but I'm going to go through some of the high-level pieces of this. We can have a discussion about it, all of us. So here's the introduction. Afghanistan, Iraq, maybe Libya. If you ask the average American where the United States has been at war in the past 2 decades, you would likely get this short list. But the list is wrong. Can you guys in the chat, we'll come back to this in a second, but can you guys in the chat, like, if probably people say Iraq, Afghanistan, maybe Libya. They're right. I don't even think Libya might not even be on that list. I think for most people it would be Afghanistan and Iraq.
I wouldn't have said Libya. I would have said Iraq, Afghanistan, and that probably would have been it on my list if you would ask me, before.
Yeah.
So I saw somebody in chat answer what my answer would have been, and that was all of them. I can't. Well, and I know that it sounds like I'm being, like, facetious, but no, literally, I can't think of a single war that is waging on the earth that the United States is not somehow, some way involved in.
That they're like, let's let that one play itself out. We're going to sit that one out. No, that's not the amount.
I mean, even frickin' Armenia and Azerbaijan, Nancy Pelosi has to fly in there and stick her neck in there.
Yeah.
He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home.
I mean, just everything. You're absolutely right about it. And now we want to do this on the moon, by the way, against China for moon bases. So again, not even on Earth.
And it says in Job chapter 9, verse 24, that the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked, not the moon or the stars or anything else. If the Edomite was allowed to travel the galaxy, he would do so and turn the universe into a damn trash can like he's done to the earth. Remember, his desire is as hell and is as death, and he cannot be satisfied. This devil wants everything. Resources isn't enough. He wants your soul too. Just look at them bringing about this transhumanism agenda to put C-hips in you. They want to be able to just control every aspect of your life.
Earth, we want to start these wars. So to let me know in the chat how many, and just you name the different countries in the chat. I want to see how many of you guys get them. Anyway, so Afghanistan, Iraq, and maybe Libya. If you ask the average American where the United States has been at war over the past 2 decades, you would likely get this short list, but this list is wrong. It's off by at least 17 countries in which the United States has engaged in armed conflict through ground forces, proxy forces, or airstrikes. It's incredibly troubling.
Yes.
For members of the public, the full extent of the U.S. war making is unknown. You don't know about it. They don't want you to know about it. If you knew about it, there would be a revolt. You can't pay for gasoline.
Like we saw in Vietnam. Think about Vietnam. They showed, soldiers coming home. They showed caskets. They showed the brutality of war, and they got so many people that revolted against it. And then they did a little bit of it in Iraq, but then they decided, well, you know what? This time around, let's not do that because it got people up in arms. And so they just completely shut that down, and now they show nothing.
Well, yeah, in Iraq specifically, there's a number of reporters who were told and who are now have come forward later that when they arrived in Baghdad, they were embedded with different military groups, Marines, etc., and they were told, no cameras over here, you can only film this, you can't show these people being hurt, and none of it. It was like totally whitewashed and totally blocked. Now, according to the Cradle, quoting now, among the nations in West Asia affected by these so-called security cooperation authorities, so they have what's known as a security cooperation authority that they get to use for these wars. Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. So they, under this auspice of security cooperation authority, they get to then be able to go in and have an effect in those 4 countries. However, they also include many African and Latin American nations, known as the Security Cooperation Authorities. They were passed by the U.S. Congress in the years following the September 11th attacks. So this is at the heart of it. It's all post 9/11. And they are a continuation of the 2001 Authorization for Use of Military Force, or the AUMF, which is a piece of legislation that has been stretched by 4 successive governments, the Cradle points out. And now, according to the report, the authorization to use military force covers a broad assortment of terrorist groups, the full list of which the executive branch long withheld from Congress and still withholds from the public. So they wouldn't give it to Congress. It's like us asking for the Pfizer documents. We'll give them to you in 75 years.
Back in Micah chapter 2, verse 1, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. They come up with all these legislative measures and documents in the background. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And as the guy in this video said, all this legislation out here and all this information citing that there are terrorist groups that the U.S. is fighting against, but when people ask for the information, they don't tell you. They do it in the dark. And when the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And they just push that legislation out there to the public and say, this is what it is, and this is what it's going to be. And the majority of people just go along with it because they believe what the government says and the media propaganda, what they put up and say what it is. But if you try to dig deep, hey, don't worry about it. That's above your pay grade.
So they withhold this from Congress, and still to this day, the American people are not allowed to see the list of people that we are actively going after and killing. What? Why don't we ever talk about this when these people run for Congress? So people want to talk about, Fetterman does this and Dr. Oz did that, whatever. I don't give a rat's ass at the end of the day. This is the shit that matters, where people are being killed using U.S. taxpayer dollars around the world. Mm-hmm.
And American lives are being put at stake for something that we have not had an opportunity to buy into.
Yeah.
And that's what really pisses me off. I really wish that they would have a something on your tax form where you could opt into the war tax. Because the thing is, like, you are inadvertently, when you pay your taxes, you're supporting this. You are sending your money to kill people around the world. And I wish that if they wanted to know how the American people really felt about war, if they had a tick box and they said, do you support military? Click yes. I guarantee you that would be a low number.
Well, I remember there was a little kid who, like, under George W. Bush, like, he knew that the country was hurting, and so he saved up his allowance, and he brought it, like, in a jar or something, and he gave his allowance to George W. Bush to help America's debt problem. Mm-hmm. And I think they ended up, like, writing it in a check format and giving it to him, and it was like $17 or something. Like, this little kid saved up his hard-earned money and then handed it over to George W. Bush. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, my God.
And that kid today has 3 jobs and can't afford gas to get to work.
Right. Or hopefully
that's America.
Hopefully that little kid grew up to be a journalist, an independent journalist, and is exposing the lies of these people. I mean, maybe, just maybe.
He's probably addicted to fentanyl.
Meanwhile, so the Cradle says the executive branch long withheld from Congress and still withholds from the public. But this next piece is amazing on training and equipping. Following in this tradition, the security cooperation authorities being abused by the Pentagon are Section 333 and Section 1227E of Title 10 of the United States Code. Now, this section authorizes the U.S. Army to train and equip foreign forces anywhere in the world, while the other section authorizes the Pentagon to provide support for foreign forces, paramilitaries, and private individuals who are in turn supporting U.S. counterterrorism operations. And they have a spending limit for those individuals up to $100 million per fiscal year.
Where is that, like, where does that fall in the Constitution? Like, our right to do that?
Or the federal budget.
No, this is extra. These are like the extra governmental crap that gets shoved in there that we don't ever see. We don't get to see about it. We don't get to vote on it. It's already here.
Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds behind the scenes. When morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. You only hear about it after they voted and passed it, and it's already put into place. Nothing you can do about it, but just sit there and suck on it.
It's just built into this Security Cooperation Authority code after 9/11. And so we can funnel money to anyone who provides support to foreign forces, paramilitaries, and private individuals. So we can literally fund. That's how we're paying for Al-Qaeda in Ukraine right now to fight against Russia and ISIS, paying them $2,500 a month to go fight in Ukraine. We've covered that story here on the show. Where does that money come from? There you go. Again, quoting the Cradle. However, thanks to the vague definition of support and training in the text of this report, these laws, both Section 333 and Section 127, have been used and abused to target adversarial groups under a strained interpretation of constitutional self-defense. They have also allowed the U.S. Army to develop and control proxy forces that fight on behalf of and sometimes alongside their own.
Over the past 6 months, we have been investigating as well as exposing the truth behind all of these food processing plants.
So we can have Al-Qaeda fighting alongside American forces. Like, that's how this works, under this code. As a result of this, in dozens of countries, these programs have been used as a springboard for hostilities, with the Pentagon often declining to inform Congress or the United States public about their secret operations under the reasoning that the incidents are too minor to trigger statutory reporting requirements.
What?
That's it with this clip, you get the point. Hey, but as we can clearly see, the prophecies fit you Edomites like a glove. You're proud and you can't keep it home. You steal people's resources. In the United States of America, you truly are that hammer of the earth. But as it said in that Jeremiah 50 verse 23, that hammer is going to be broken and cut asunder when it's hit by those nuclear missiles. And then you Edomites globally, you're going down and going into slavery. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.